All right, people. We're back. Time for another episode of the Soccer Dad Pod. Rolling in with a little bit of fog hat today. It's Friday, and in St. Louis, if it's Friday, you gotta play a K-Sheet Classic, and that's the law. The law of the land in the 314 and 618. Excuse me. It's that time of year, too, so pardon the cough, people. Thanks for tuning in for another episode here. I believe this is number 19. What was supposed to be a ha-ha funny let's do a podcast has turned into an unexpected monster time suck. So it's been a lot of fun. So thanks for tuning in here. Be sure to give us a follow on Spotify, Apple, whatever your listen of choice is. And reviews are great too. I don't know, something about the algorithm is what I've been told. So, and apparently the algorithm is good if it likes you. So that'll help out. The two reasons, excuse me, the second reason I rolled out with a little fog hat, slow ride, is it reminds me of my own youth, high school youth in particular, heading out to preseason practices. Usually Kurt Kessler or someone similar would be picking me up in a Trans Am or Trans Am type car, heading out in the late 80s, early 90s, and inevitably it would be songs like Slow Ride. And I'm telling you this because, as you've heard from previous episodes, you guys know I'm from Granite City. You know that I'm fairly proud about that fact. The 10-time state title winning town compared to a lot less from all of our rivals, i.e. Collinsville. And today I have a Granite City guest. He played in Granite, played in college, moved on, started coaching at the college ranks at Missouri Baptist, and has moved to significantly higher levels at this point in his career. And I'm super proud and happy to have on Mr. Jared Embick, the current Akron University head coach, men's head coach. How you doing, Jared?
Good. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Got to ask you, when you heard Slow Ride, did you immediately feel like you were back in the 62040?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I thought I was going to go across from the baseball field and meet some people there.
Get
a little bit.
Get a little emos and roll the windows down, right?
Right. And just hang out. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Well, thank you for coming on. We kind of passively been communicating, from afar. And you being from here, you guys are in town, I'm assuming, for the holidays. You're on a break. Came in town with family and new little one, correct?
Yeah, I have a 1-year-old. So, because Martin Luther King's on Monday, had a long weekend. So I thought, kind of coincided with, I think it was like a $79 Southwest flight. So I think we got
love Southwest.
Everyone down here for like under $200 on a flight. So we took advantage of the long weekend to come in and see family and friends and just hang out a little bit.
Nice. Here, I tell you what. I'm just going to move your mic up a little bit there. Today, also, I just want to point out, we are located for this recording at the Mecca, again, in St. Louis, Amsterdam Tavern. I asked you before the show if you've ever been here. You said you've been a couple times. When you do come home and you walk into a place like this, what is it? Wait, does it give you warm fuzzies? Do you feel that St. Louis pride? And because when we were growing up, there were no places like this.
Right.
So what do you think when we walk in?
No, I think for me it is pride. Especially in the area of St. Louis, because of my travels, you go away and see the passion of other people in other countries about soccer, and this would be a big draw to watch games, go to bars and watch it. And in my time, you're always like, I wish I had a place like that. And when I come to St. Louis, there is one. And I have a bunch of friends when there's big games that say, hey, this is where we're going. And,
yeah,
that I think that's always exciting for anyone when you just have a place where you can go share your passion with.
Yeah, so speaking of passion, within this game, clearly you have a passion for your team. You have a passion for your alma mater, that being Granite City. But the biggest league in the world is the EPL.
Right.
So where does your passion lie there?
Yeah.
And be careful, because whatever your answer is, it could determine the length of this podcast.
Well, for the first time in a while, I think I can be proud to say Arsenal.
Okay, well, enjoy your flight back. Tell your wife and kid sorry.
Yeah, you know what,
that's a Kroenke team, right?
Well, I liked him before Kroenke took over, and it's really hurt that he's taken over that team.
Yeah,
and own it, and I feel like if I didn't just love Arsenal and how they played and that, I if I was fickle, I would have switched on that. Both my sister and my dad, they can't stand Arsenal. They're Tottenham fans.
Oh, well, you know what? Fair enough, because Tottenham is, they're like, what, Belleville East? No offense to Belleville West.
Right, yeah. So, when you watch that team with Vieira, Bergkamp,
yeah,
it's really enjoyable to watch, and they made me a fan, and I've stuck with them, and it's been some tough times, but I feel like we're back, and
well, I got to be somewhat transparent. I'm a Chelsea guy, and I've been a Chelsea guy since '90. So much kind of the opposite. I was a Chelsea fan, and then a Russian billionaire came along, which was kind of a good end result. Right. You were an Arsenal fan, and then came Kroenke, and you just stomached through it. But I got to admit, the Amazon Prime show, where I'm drawing a blank on the name of the show, but they did City first, and then they did Arsenal.
Yeah.
And it was this, an incredible focus on Arteta in particular. I watched the whole thing, and I'm like in the closet an Arsenal fan because of that show, because of Arteta in particular. What one, did you see the show, and two, what do you think of Arteta?
Yeah, I've seen several episodes, and I do think it's made Arsenal a little more likable, especially some of the players. One, I didn't know Arteta was that good of an artist. Unbelievable drawer, and some of the times you think some of his things comes off cheesy, but the players, you can tell, really enjoy playing for him and listen to him, and that's ultimately your job as a coach is can you connect with the team and get them in the direction you want, and he's obviously done that, and
he's a brilliant communicator.
Yeah,
like really the way that he utilizes not only his narrative, eyeball to eyeball and talking, but the way he uses the boards, and I was just really, really impressed. And in your experience, within as a player and your own personal coaches, and then as a coach with peers, and as an assistant with heads, etc., is there anybody that you've worked with that had that kind of je ne sais quoi, that wow characteristic that stands out to you?
Yeah, I think Caleb Porter, I worked with him for quite a few years, and especially at the college level where I worked with him, he had an unbelievable presence and could really get the feel of that locker room and get it in the direction they needed to win. And, that's kind of what propelled him to the pro ranks. And having coached at the pro level, that's a whole different animal. But for me, like when I was with him, I was like, wow, this is obviously different. Haven't seen anybody done like that up to this point, and obviously that helped me in my career as well.
Well, I've got to ask you, because you've really ran the gamut. Short of MLS within the American landscape, you're coaching at the highest level, D1. You grew up in Granite City, playing there. I got to ask about Coach Baker and your kind of remembrance of him as a coach, and was his style or anything he did. Do you see that? Do you replicate that in your own actions today?
Yeah, I think with Coach Baker, he was so intimidating as a player growing up, because when I got there, he was already practically a legend. And I think now that I've gone away from Granite and coached longer, I appreciate more how he was as a coach, And absolutely, you take everything. I think maybe one of my best things I've done is try to learn from everybody I've been a part of and worked with, and been humble in that regards. And with him, it's obviously the mental toughness you had to have, the fitness level, the responsibility to how you're supposed to play, and discipline.
Your role. You had a role.
and if you didn't do your role, you knew he was going to tell you about it.
Yeah.
And that, to me, was one of the many things that I like, and just how tough he was. Like, look, here's our standard. Here's how we want to play. You want to play, you get to there.
Yeah.
Right? Don't give me anything else. Like, you got to get there.
True story about, I don't know, maybe 4 years ago, I was coaching Beckett's team. Actually, I was coaching both my son's teams at the time and running the practices. And I always told myself, like, because I had a love-hate relationship with Baker, way more love in hindsight. The hate was me being a foolish teenager that thought he knew better. But his coaching methods and really that discipline, like you have certain instructions, don't break the rules, and we'll do just fine. And coaching these, probably at the time they were 13 on the older and 10, 11 on the under passing drills, right? Inside the foot, real simple. Don't use the outside of your foot. And then I would threaten them in practice, like, if you use the outside of your foot, you're coming out. Either the pass makes it, or you might as well just run my way. Right. And I'm saying it to these kids, and they're all staring at me like, yeah, but FIFA is like, Right. But I think about that discipline, and the results spoke for themselves. And I'm just wondering how you apply kind of player discipline and balance that with kind of the creativity that these kids have today. Where do you stand on letting the creativity flow versus your system, and how do you coach through that?
Yeah, what I tell my team is, look, we have to have structure. We have to have how we're gonna, basically the blueprint of what we want to do. And when you understand essentially of how we want to play with the ball, without the ball, then the freedom comes, right? If you're going to try to get freedom first and then get into structure, then it doesn't work. So I'm like, look, this is how we want, this is the framework. Understand that so your teammates know what to expect from you. Mm-hmm. You know what to expect from your teammates, and then within that, you guys will understand the freedom that will come from the understanding of all of it coming together. And I think it's just getting kids, like, once you get them on the same page, you can create those teams that when people watch it, then they say, oh, man, that looks like a fun team to play, creative, a lot of freedom. But you start where you're almost real strict, right? Because they got to get the basics down. They got to get the understanding down of what you want to do, so you're just not open to.
Well, and that leads to inter-squad trust. Whenever everybody's playing a particular style, and they know that within the style, each player, is expected to make certain choices, right? In your world, possess the ball from, what we were discussing earlier and what you're kind of describing now. Don't turn the ball over. Possess it, move it around, keep moving. So if you're playing within that system and you're fully expecting to receive the ball eventually, right. You're moving to get open. And that's so tough, because these kids today they're so much faster. They're so much more. Their touch is just incredible, and the ability to do special things is all the way through the ranks, right? So it's, kudos to you for kind of leading that way. Let's go backwards a little bit. Because we kind of skipped over how it all happened. I know enough to be dangerous. You're a couple of years younger than me. You took off. I believe you went to Indiana Wesleyan.
Yes. Yeah.
And then out of Indiana, did you go straight into coaching at MOBAP?
Right away. Yep.
Okay, so talk about those years and working through the assistant days, and when you took over as the head coach.
Yeah. Once I got out of playing, my mom said, hey, if you want to come back home, Missouri Baptist is looking for a graduate assistant. I'm like, all right. I didn't really have any other great leads, so I just called the coach, and it's Juan Pablo Favero. He's now the head women's coach at the University of Oakland in D1 in Michigan. And he's like, look, no one's called me as much as you. If you want, come on in. Let's have an interview. He's like, we got to do both teams. I'm, men's and women's coach. And I was like, fine. I was like, look, I just want to work, get in the game, whatever you need me to do, right? And, I don't think the expectations for GAs to work very hard was very high. So for me, it was like, look, I grew up here, so it's great to go watch, the CBC, the Chaminade, the SLU, that 4 little team tournament, go back, watch Granite games, see any diamonds in the rough that may want to go to a smaller school in St. Louis, and
Right.
then coach both teams, and the advantage of coaching both teams, just more hours training. Like you gotta get out there, you gotta coach, you gotta communicate, you gotta say, wait a minute, I don't like that, I don't feel like I came across well. You gotta have someone else tell you, like, look, you gotta have more personality here, you gotta speak up, and then from there I just more mutual friends, Justin Bernay, working with, at the time, Metro
Club.
And he introduced me to Dale Shilley, and I just asked, hey, can I coach in the evening? So, what I tell people, like, if you're getting a soccer coach for money, I'm like, you get out. I started making $6,000, and then I was just happy to make $2 or $3,000 on the side coaching Metro, and I was up, at the office by 8 a.m. and I was back home by 9 p.m. pretty much for 11 months of the year. And what happened with Dale, he's like, hey, we got this 18B team, I can't get anyone to coach it, why don't you coach it? And I think what made me different and helped is most people say, no, I want an A team. I'm coaching college, give me an A team, let me work with the best. I was like, I need experience.
Yeah.
Love to take the B team. Like, I probably make mistakes with the B team.
Yeah.
Right?
Nobody will notice.
We can kind of work at this together. I'm a 22, 23-year-old coach. And B team, awesome experience. Great kids. Got them to State Cup, won a couple games. Got a lot of the kids to stay. They love that. And then Dale's like, hey, you've done a really good job with the team that we've struggled to keep. Why don't you just work with me with the A teams? You keep the B team the second year, and you be my assistant. I'm like, great. I must have, Dave Fernandez, Dale Shilley, I must have annoyed the hell out of them.
Yeah.
Hey, question after question, like, what are you guys seeing here? Why do you guys do this? Just learning.
Yeah.
And then I'd go back. You coached your 2 teams, and I had the opportunity at 24 when Juan Pablo left. They split the programs, and thankfully thought I did a well enough job that they hired me for the men's team. But I stayed coaching club. I'm like, I need to coach.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like I understand the game, and I don't think you ever get to that point as a coach. But but through Dale, he got me to Indiana soccer camp as a staff coach, and that's kind of where I met Caleb Porter. And I remember this, my first year there, I called Coach Yeagley, said, hey, look, I just had knee surgery a month ago. He's like, oh, don't worry about it, you have an open invitation, you can coach next year. I go, no, Coach, long as you're okay with me on crutches,
I'll be there.
I'm coaching. I'm like, I'm not going to miss this opportunity.
Right.
Like, well, you sure? I was like, he's like, I may not be able to get you to and from. I'm like, don't worry about it. I'll get there. I'll do what I have to do. So I'm coaching on crutches my first IU camp, and Caleb Porter was my basically group coordinator, coaching U12s, and in camp I was coaching a flat back 4 for my camp team. He's like, why are you doing that? Like, because that's the best way to play out of it. Defensively, like with the back 4. He's like,
did you not get the memo?
He's like, why would you not? He's like, yeah, but it's camp. This was back in the day where still was some sweeper, stopper, type things. This is how old I am these days. And my team won the week. Nope, not really a big deal, but I think it was just, hey, this kid's going to come on crutches, going to try to work really hard in a camp setting where most people go to just the evening and that, and
just to get the supplemental pay.
Yeah, and he's like, there's something different there, and I think that kind of stuck with Caleb. And I worked a couple IU camps, and then when I was going here, Missouri Baptist was going well. I think we took them to the regional finals, farthest they've been when I was head coach. And then Caleb lost an assistant, and he called me, and I was almost didn't take the call, because anytime he calls me, it's like, hey, what about this recruit in St. Louis? I'm like, yeah, it's a guy I can never get. You guys should go get him. He's good. It'll be something like that. And then he's like, hey, I lost an assistant. Would you be interested? I'm like, yeah, how long do I have? He's like, well, you got about 24 hours. I need to know if you want the job in 24 hours. So, going from head coach and that, I was like, look, University of Akron, great opportunity to move to a higher level. Caleb's been at a winning program as a player. I'm like, you're only going to learn and be better.
Yeah.
what are you waiting for?
What year was this when you
It would
were?
have been 2007.
Okay.
In like the springtime, and so I said, it's like when you're like almost dating a girl. Like, well, how long do I wait to tell them I want to go? If I I sound too eager, if I call them
Yeah,
back,
you play too hard to get. Eventually, you lose the get.
should I wait till the 23rd hour? Or, I'm like, don't be stupid. Just don't make this complicated. If you want to, just call them back and take it. So I did that, and that got me kind of my big break with him. And everybody always asks, like, average player, what'd you do? I was like, well, look, I never really said this is where I want to go. I just said I want to be the best coach I can be. I want to learn as much as I can, and I'll coach as much as I need to coach to get better.
Yeah.
And I said, it's not like I went for my playing weight and put on weight because I just ate a lot. I was like, no, you're coaching 12 hours a day. You got 30 minutes to get from one place to the other, and you haven't ate. You're stopping at McDonald's.
Yeah.
And that stuff comes back and bites you. And when you don't have training time, it's not like, hey, I want to go work out. Hey, I don't have a training time. Maybe I can go hang out with friends, have a little bit. But I go for the longest point. I just grinded.
Yeah.
And never with the expectations of anything. Like, it was, I loved it. Hopefully my players respect, enjoy playing for me. How do I want to play the game was the first part of it,
Right.
We talked about Arsenal. I'm like, can I coach and make a team play like that, right? And then you watch, you learn, you ask. Thankfully, I've been around a lot of people that have been able to reciprocate kindness and talk to me about their, journey and help me along the way. And even when I got to Akron, you're working a ton of hours, for a very good program. I went and coached the Cleveland Internationals, who would be a team in the U.S. Development Academy. And, I was fortunate enough, in 2010, we went to the finals. But even then, until I became head coach at University of Akron, I was still coaching in the evenings after my college job. People ask me why you're making good money as an assistant. I'm like, well, I want to be a head coach. So at some stage, the way I communicate, the way I train is going to dictate my wins and losses, my job security. I go, as an assistant, you're always in behind the head coach. You don't always have to communicate. You don't have to have tough conversations all the time. And I'm like, I need to work on that. I need to stay sharp on that. I need to, because communication and training and getting the players to not only buy into what you're doing, but believe in you is a big part of being successful. And, so I tell people, if you weren't a great player, you got to start at the bottom, and you got to just grind and network and talk to people. And I said, at the end of the day, you can't set a timetable on when a break will happen. You got to be happy where you're at. Those kids that you're coaching got to believe in you, that you're not looking to just use them and get on the next step. That they're too smart for that. They'll see it. And I don't even ever believe that my end goal when I got into coaching is to be where I was at. It wasn't. I just really enjoyed it, and I've been really fortunate now to be in this position, and I still really enjoy what I do. And
because you're going on year 9, or you just finished year 9?
Finished 10.
So I glanced through the MOBAP days and your Akron days. The stat that stood out to me was you have the exact same win percentage, like literally within 1 basis point from both schools. So there's a lot of consistency there. And then I think, correct me if I'm wrong, 6 out of 10 years at Akron, you've won the conference or finished first.
I don't know. Like on our conference, we haven't always thought about judging ourselves that way. More about Final Fours and been to 3 as a head coach and 2 as an assistant. So, that's kind of our mark there. But I think it's 6 or 7 of the 10.
Yeah, and now you guys are moving into Big East, correct?
Yeah.
So, where's your mindset with that? Because that's a much different conference. Clearly, it carries a lot of that, just that name pizzazz. So that's going to be your conference games, home and away, or does it play home and away?
We'll play. I think there's 12 teams, so we'll play. They put it into a West and an East, so we're in the West, and we'll play all of them once a year, and then we'll play 3 cross-bracket games in a conference tournament. So we'll play 8 games.
And then what's your out-of-conference teams looking like for next year, or can you say so far?
No, right now we're looking at like Notre Dame, Florida International. Those are probably the headliners. Vermont is another one. Michigan, those are ones. And then I've always had a schedule that non-conference was very difficult because the conference wasn't as difficult. So this year, we put in some more games that hopefully we should win, and then trying to navigate the conference for the life of me in my 10 years as head coach at Akron. You're kind of expected to win conference, but your measuring stick was always postseason
tournament. Yeah.
So everybody kind of got, whether you won conference or not, as long as you can win in the conference tournament or get a berth at large, nobody really cared. Now the Big East, it seems like there'll be more emphasis on doing well in the conference because of the prestige of it. So, there's going to be a learning curve on how we navigate that and still want to be successful.
Sure.
My staff is like, all right, this is only going to make us better for the postseason, right, and give us a better chance. Typically, it's always more difficult when your best games are in September and then the tournament's in November.
Right.
You're missing out on some quality games that help you prepare. Now we'll kind of flip it. We'll have some very difficult games, leading into the tournament that I think will help prepare us better.
Very hockey-esque, in so much that you're wanting to be the hot team going into the playoffs, right? So talk a little bit about you being at the D1 level. You have pressure from below from a recruiting standpoint, and then you have pressure from above. From a draft standpoint, from a placement standpoint. Not that you need players to be drafted to the MLS or to go overseas, et cetera, for your program to succeed, but that does add to kind of the brand identity and the ability to recruit on the other end of the spectrum. How do you navigate that process? How are you very involved in the recruiting process? Where are you on the post-collegiate days for some of your players? What do you do in the before and after stages?
Yeah, I think, you want to be coaching at a program where players believe they can come to develop and, reach their goals of being a professional, right? I think you want to be in that mix of teams that are considered a really good place to go to for that. You don't necessarily have to have that to be successful at the college level, but the way we've done it at Akron is our style of play and our ability to develop players and put them in good opportunities at the next level has been a big part of our success. And, beforehand, you're looking for players that, are probably close, close to being it and maybe not coming to school. Or you're looking for guys that may have the potential but need a different opportunity, maybe, like everybody, they may need to change a position and they have to learn it somewhere sometimes. Like you can't just do that at the next level. And are you looking for guys that you just feel are underdeveloped, and that you believe in from watching them, that they haven't reached their potential, and depending on their character, you may be able to help them.
Well, so give me an idea of the difference in kind of the recruiting process, because coming out of college, your early years starting at MOBAP, and working with the club, I mean, clearly that's, those are still high school kids. But in those years, that's really, there were MLS academies, there were, kind of, quote, academy teams in general. And you fast forward to today where you have exponentially more MLS academies. You have, the usual suspects in the IMGs of the world. And more importantly, you have these showcases, GA Cup, Dallas, et cetera, where they're all there. How different was the recruiting process, date you a little bit, 18, 20 years ago to now, how do you find them? Where do you go? How much easier is it today? Or is it easier today? Is it more competitive today?
Yeah, I think 18 years ago, when I was at Missouri Baptist, you looked for anybody that you thought was a good player. It didn't matter about size, pace, whatever. Can they see the game a certain way? Like for me, they can fit in how you play there, right? Especially as an American player. Missouri Baptist heavily more international, where guys don't. You can maybe get a good player because they have just the opportunity. They don't really know anything about U.S. soccer or how it works. When I got to Akron, my first couple of years, we were able to get some national team kids, and a lot of these guys like Zarek Valentin, and some of these guys are still playing, Darlington Nappy, all these guys, Teal Bunbury. You knew if you saw a kid in those showcases at that time, they're all coming to school still.
Yeah.
Very few turn pro. Now we're sitting here, and we'll go watch St. Louis City, and we may think, hey, they're top 2-3 players who normally have a shot at. Well, now they're out of the mix. They're signing, potentially. So now you're looking at maybe their third through their seventh player. Well, now those guys may be going to the 2 team. Are you going to get them? Well, 8 to 10, they're still good players, but are they players that year one can come in and make a difference and get you over the hump? Might not be,
Yeah.
They'd have to be very selective. So now you're trying to piece together your holes with the best options out there, and it's just gotten more competitive with the number of pro teams and number of pro options to maybe find an impact freshman that's an American kid,
So do you then, just from a geographical standpoint, like a strategy standpoint, because we're both familiar with where these academies are. The easy thing is they're in the city of the MLS team, so you know that. Right. But then you have marketplaces like Tulsa, Omaha, these kind of what I would consider second or third tier cities, but there are soccer populations, everywhere. Do you have a process to dig into those areas? Because those kids, the very, very few of them that have the quality and the ability to play for a City SC or a Chicago Fire Academy, they don't have the logistics.
Right.
They can't move. So have you shifted, kind of maybe digging in the dirt a little bit for talent?
You try. You really try everywhere. The problem is the resources you have to go and do that. Like, when you look at some of the ECNL level, the lower tier levels, it's, if I think you're going to play for us, I go watch you play. My expectations is that it'd be fairly obvious you're above the level at that. And if you're not, maybe it's a bad day for you, but it might be the only day I can see you. And then you might be gone, and we may make a mistake, but we basically have a limited opportunity to see everybody either through budgets or just time.
Yeah.
Right, with the way these things are set up. But, you hope you have built some contacts in some of those places where you can reach out. And in fairness, the MLS academies now are digging in those areas and getting those kids into their clubs too.
Yeah.
And it's very rarely you go watch Seattle Sounders. It's still a bunch of kids maybe farther away from Seattle than near that area.
Yeah.
They've done a really good job at some of these places of bringing kids in. Like we have a Columbus Crew kid coming in next year. He's from West Virginia.
So did he transplant, or was he? I mean, that's too far to commute, but
yeah, host families, all this.
Yeah.
So it's you got some of these options where we found kids in the past that have placed themselves in academies, and that's helped us find them as well. It's just a little bit more. It's not only you competing with other top colleges or any colleges for these players, you're also competing against these 2 teams or that, and you have a lot of conversations with parents about, hey, well, why shouldn't we sign a 2-team deal? Why would college be it? I'm like, depends on how you want to look at it. Like, do you?
Yeah. Okay.
What are you looking at?
Like, you know what? I'm glad you brought that up, because we're pretty far away from even the potential of that kind of conversation. We meaning my family, my son. He's 8th grade, right? But just hypothetically pretend that you're sitting at this table and it's a academy player and they're on the bubble between a City 2 or, that USL team and a D1 offer from a top 10, 15 team like in Akron, right? What's the pitch? How do you speak to that? And what's the value add, whether it's, Akron or a SLU or an IU or whoever?
I think it starts with, what is the actual offer? Are they just giving you a 2-team offer, no first team, right? So it's only a 2 contract. At the end of the day, if you take that 2 contract at 17, you basically allow them to have low risk because the money ain't going to be great that they offer you. And they'll give you 2 years to make it. And I'm like, you come to us, you get to play for a top program, you get to continue to develop. Worst case scenario is you get that 2-team offer a couple years later. You might be more physically, more emotionally ready for it. I'm like, and best case scenario is you've developed leverage on that team because other people have seen you play and like you that they can't offer you a 2-team deal and get you. They can offer you a first-team deal. Right,
yeah.
Because now so-and-so has seen you play and they like it. They'll take it. They may lose what they work with. So I was telling them, do you want to have more time and leverage in your court or do you want to give it all to the club?
Yeah.
Because guess what? You get injured in one of those 2 years, well, they probably already have recruited another 17-year-old that they may want to say, oh, let's give this kid a shot. And if he takes that shot, even if you're a really good player, you're on the outs.
Right.
I was actually talking to one of the MLS clubs not too long ago, and they said, hey, we should have sent this kid to you. He's at the end of his second year. He's about to be done. And he shouldn't be done playing soccer or now having to figure out what he's going to do. He could have gone to you. You could have got him more ready for what we needed him to be ready for 2 years ago.
Yeah, because once they do that, you can't go backwards.
Can't go back.
Yeah.
I've already said, the NCAA we've been looking as coaches to make this full season, right? I said, look, that's nice. There's some holes in that for me. We have some bigger things, and for me, the bigger thing is this. How are we going to navigate these 2 teams, maybe USL 1? I'm like, at the end of the day, can we convince the NCAA if they haven't played in the MLS or USL Championship or USL 1 is his own thing, if they're going to play MLS Next Pro for a 2-team and never play an MLS game, they should be able to come back to school.
Yeah.
We shouldn't. That's a developmental league that is under the pro umbrella, but it's not really a pro league. A lot of the teams have just taken their 19.
They should just categorize every contract as an NIL contract, right?
Because it's like the international kids. You get the international kids that get, that extra gap here and that, and then if they've gotten certain expenses and don't go over the threshold, they can still come back and be eligible. I said we should set a mark with that and just say, hey, look, if a kid so excited to be a pro, wants to be a pro, and you can't convince them and think logically, then let him go try it. And at 2 years, if it's gone, let's not take away his whole choices of life. Let's support these kids because, at the end of the day, I still tell people, unless you're going to make it over to a big league in Europe, you're still going to make more money with your college degree than you will playing soccer.
Yeah.
The money ain't there. It's not football. It's not basketball yet where, you sign a multi-million-dollar deal. You're going to have to play. A lot of those guys are going to have to play 8 to 10 years to make, over a million or a couple million, and even then, that's not going to be enough.
No, that's not long-term planning. That's short-term fun. And you are a pro, and you are getting paid to live and play a game you love, but that's not.
You gotta have to work, and there's only so many of those players that are going to be put back into coaching.
Yeah,
put back, and maybe fortunate for me that there wasn't that many pro teams, so I got some opportunities maybe than all these guys that are now either having to pay for their own school somehow and get a degree and move into something else, or they're getting into coaching or some administrative role at these clubs for whatever money just to make ends meet. And so I just try to tell them, I'm like, look, if you're 18 and you get a first-team offer, that's a whole different animal. You can go a lot of different directions from that. That should be highly considered.
Yeah.
They're offering you a 2-team deal. They like you, but they're not willing to a certain much risk with you. They'll give you 2 years to make it at whatever price they say. You've given them all the power of your career.
Yeah.
And I'm like, here, you got, even if you don't make it, people got to understand, very difficult to make it. There's nothing wrong with not making it. If you can get a degree and get somewhat of your education paid for and lessen that cost and get you off to a head start in life, you're further along than most people.
Yeah, and you got a nice little Rolodex.
Right.
You got a fraternity of a different type of fraternity, right?
Right.
So, well, I tell you what, as you can tell, and those of you that are listening, starting to get a little chirpy here in the background, which is a good thing because we're in a soccer pub. That means, based on the kits I see sitting in the bar, it looks like Aston Villa. In fact, it is. Villa is about to play Leeds here shortly. So, beers are running low here. Looks like it's hot and they're evaporating, so we need to get them refilled. So we'll be right back here in just a second. Jared, thanks for your time. We'll get some refills and we'll talk a little bit more soccer. You cool with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, man. Be right back. Hey everyone, JB here with Soccer Dad Pod. This break is intended to be both informative and an opportunity. Little did you know that we are accepting sponsors. Really. And as a sponsor of the show, you would get to talk to a demographic primarily consisting of parents, some soccer fans, and most definitely drinkers. Consider this an opportunity to let our listeners and social media followers know what it is you do and why you deserve some of their money. If interested in this incredible opportunity, just email us at soccerdadpod@gaslightstl.com. Now, back to the mindless banter. Okay, people. We are back. I got another K-Sheet classic for you, Jared. Kind of remind you of like summertime and rolling over to Paddlers or the park pool.
Oh, Paddlers for sure.
Go get yourself a little Weather Vane ice cream. Or on Friday. Well, Fridays, two things. Marco's Fish and KC 95, right?
Right.
Well, we're back rolling in with a little, as I just mentioned, KC Classic, a little Van Halen. Without KC 95, Van Halen does not have the career they had, period. The iconic Crestwood McDonald's photo and being able to fill up the Checker Dome all those times.
Yeah.
Blew them up, right? So we're back. Got some refills down here at Amsterdam Tavern. We came in here, and I believe we were the only two in here at as we kicked this thing off. And now, I don't know, 15, 20 people all wearing their kits, and it's fun. It's fun to come to a place like this, and two teams that most average soccer fans have no clue who they are, and everybody in here knows every player on the field.
Yeah. Used to like the Leeds teams back when they had Mark Viduka.
Oh yeah,
Harry Kuehl. Those were fun teams.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic that they're on, because one of the things I wanted to kind of be sure and talk about with you was your take on U.S. soccer in general from a big picture viewpoint, specifically in regards to the World Cup, our performance going into it, coming out of it, the player issues, and obviously now U.S. Soccer's trying to decide what to do with the head coaching position. There's a lot of things going on with quote U.S. soccer right now. And the fact that Leeds is on, with the players they have, Tyler and oh my God, Pennsylvania boy.
Aronson.
Thank you. Playing such a role on that team, and really so many American players right now in the EPL in particular are becoming not just novelty, but relevant role to impact players. Pulisic recently was one of the more so. And then you look at St. Louis boy, Tim Reams.
Right.
What what they did yesterday to my guys. Fulham looks great, and he's a big reason for that. So that's a lot of like random statements in regards to U.S. soccer and players. So let's just simplify this. Grade U.S. soccer right now. Grade, this is a 3-part quiz. How are we from a player standpoint? How are we from a system standpoint? And how are we from a coaching standpoint?
Yeah, player standpoint, I think it's definitely the future is on the up. We have a lot of guys, like you mentioned, playing in very good leagues. And that's the key, and I think that's only getting better, and more people are coming and looking over at American players. So I think, for a young American player, there's no better time than now. The opportunities are a lot better. They're getting chances in big leagues, and the talent is there.
Yeah.
From a system standpoint, the way U.S. soccer runs thing, I think, needs a lot of work. And you could just tell by the whole ordeal after the World Cup, a lot of, just good old boys club.
Yeah.
And who's going to take this and say, hey, let's look at this from U.S. soccer, and let's do what's best, and let's provide opportunities. Even from the youth level, I still think there's a lot of growth that can do to even, double, triple the output of players we're doing now. And, coaching standpoint, look, I just look at how we did in the World Cup. I don't think we did anything that nobody expected us. I think we beat the teams we should have beat. We lost to the teams that we thought we ended in the round. People thought we would end in.
Right.
If you want to call the draw against England a positive step, I don't know.
At some point we have to win those games.
Right. And at the end of the day, if you're playing better than you thought you would play against the Netherlands, that's not the answer. The answer is, can we play that way and get the result we want to get or need to get in a knockout stage? And I just think of how we built up in the tournament. CONCACAF was down, and I don't think we played enough good games to prepare them for those games. And the games we did play, we didn't do well in.
Well, one of the things that annoyed me during the World Cup, especially towards the end of the World Cup, as all the teams were kind of rolling through their destinies, is how many times did you see, because it annoyed me every time, the whether it was Twitter or wherever it was, the reference to our last friendly, we beat Morocco, and clearly Morocco had a tremendous run, exhibited kind of a depth that nobody expected them to have, and really a style of play that everybody's like, shit, that's good. But in typical American style, that arrogant American in all of us to a degree, referencing that game, just like I said, it irritated me as I saw it, because it's like, it doesn't matter. Like, literally, if you zoom out from the score of that screenshot, somewhere on that screen it says friendly. Not relevant, it said friendly, right?
Right.
So my frustration is we need relevant wins, not just to compete, and my question to you is, being so close to the game at such a high level, do you ever get frustrated? Do you ever get irritated with U.S. soccer? After all of these years, and we see the talent, and we think that we could put an 11 on the field to theoretically compete with anybody. Does it bother you?
Yeah, I think we should be at the stage where we're talking quarterfinals, right? And maybe semifinals. That, just feels like we leave thinking a knockout stage, first game, exit. We've progressed because we failed to make a World Cup we should have made 4 years ago, right?
And 2 Olympics.
So because we lowered the bar 4 years ago, now the bar is back to being raised, when the reality is we're no further than we were 15, 16, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Maybe even a step back in terms of getting these results. And the players are playing in better leagues, so the results should follow. So where's the disconnect on why we can't translate guys playing in bigger roles for better teams and tougher leagues to results we need for the national team? Is it coaching? Is it the U.S. soccer system? It's probably a combination of both. And, I think for us, what I always think is the most difficult thing for U.S. is because it's so big. you could take, a Latino coach, and he could put together a really good U.S. national team with predominantly Latino players.
Correct.
So what is our identity? Right? So how do we mesh all these different cultures? What is it?
You are preaching to the choir. I have repeatedly argued that our issue... Well, let me back up a little bit. Another comment that irritates me all to hell is when people say, we need the best athletes. That's not it. We've got tremendous athletes that are playing the game. I've always said our issue is our size. Our issue is our demographic variations, our regional differences, because the style of play, as you well know, at the level that you're coaching, you go up to the Northeast, there's a particular style. You move into the Southwest, there's a whole other style of play. You get into Texas, that even has a different style of play that is a combination in all those areas of the ethnic makeup of these teams, of these clubs, of the coaches, the size, the physicality, because we are truly a melting pot. And I think that hurts us in the global game. So if you and I are on the same page there, how do you fix that? Like, let's say that, U.S. Soccer comes to you and says, hey, look, Jared, you killed it. Akron, love everything you've done. Replicate that in our world. What do you need first? What do you do?
You got to hire someone, I think at the technical director that from the bottom up gets everything on the same page to where we don't just fight each other all the time at the youth levels, at that. I think I would start there, and I think for the national team, who's the players you can't play without, build it around their strengths.
Okay.
Fill in their weaknesses, right? So
you
that's
said
the way you do it.
You said it. Who are the three players we cannot play without right now that are under the U.S. umbrella?
Well, for me, there's only one, and that's the problem. We don't have three. There's only one.
Oh, tricky answer there. Who's the one?
It's Tyler Adams. Like Pulisic. Look, if you want to talk Pulisic, Gio Reyna, depending on form, that could flip for me really easily, right?
Right.
You got, obviously, we don't have a 9 that we can consistently count on. Problem. The one guy you take out of the team, and when Tyler Adams in there, we perform a little bit more consistently. We have a chance. You take him out, like McKinney, even Musa. Those guys haven't dominated games or controlled games or done what they need to do at a high enough level to where they're indispensable. And I think that's maybe the bigger issue. This guy that could come close to that is Tim Ream, but he's only been in the national team picture the last year and a half.
He's 35.
Right, so it's like, we got to develop more guys that maybe. So now you're building the team around Tyler Adams, and that's only one player, and I know everybody loves Pulisic, and he's just not, for me,
I don't, which surprises so many people knowing that I'm a Chelsea fan in particular, and obviously an American soccer lover. I've always been suspect of Pulisic overall. I mean, early on, I said, standing in this pub with all my other old school Chelsea buddies, the issue is I think he gets injured too much. And here he is yet again, injured again. I saw he's missed 52 games under Chelsea to injury. And one of the things that irritates me when it comes to Pulisic in all of these big games, not only with Chelsea, but more relevant to the conversation with the U.S. team, is game would have been different if he would have tapped that in, right? Think back to the Haaland game. 2 minutes in.
Right.
Erling Haaland doesn't miss that goal against Haaland. Pulisic did.
Right.
So I have a hard time with Pulisic. I do think Reyna, which I wanted to ask you about that situation, because it's so asinine, really. I mean, it's
absolutely.
I mean, it's embarrassing, is really what it is. But in watching Gio enough, he's got that it. He had, when his switch is flipped to on, he's a world-class player. Do you see him as a potential world-class player that can replicate that level for the national team in lieu of everything that's just occurred?
Yeah, and I like him. If you would say, look, both of them are playing the best soccer they can personally play. You can only have one in the lineup, but you take it. I'm taking Gio. I think all-around game, sees passes. My problem with Pulisic isn't injuries are an issue, but he misses passes. He misses putting other guys in. He's too much head down, and that directness is a positiveness. It can be positive, but long as you have other guys that can see the pass that needs to be made, and national team don't have many of those players, and that to me, decision making, vision, passing, we're off. That's where we're off the level for me. We got the athletes that can run. We got some one-on-one guys. We got some dynamic, but we don't have the intelligence, the vision, that. And I think that's where Gio can maybe bring some of that to us. And obviously he's coming off injuries and his body's not developed and he's adjusting physically to the pace of that level for 365 days a year. But if he can get it, I think his ceiling's higher. And he's the one that gets hurt the most through this parental squabble.
Is that really what you want to call it? A squabble?
It's just like it's like the good old boys club.
Oh my God!
If they weren't so close, this is not a problem.
Yeah.
So if the Raiders don't feel like they can call a buddy and vent and talk to and be off the record, none of this happens.
Yeah, you were telling me a story earlier, and I don't know if it's okay to bring it up, about the team vote. Are we good to talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so break it down. So for those of you that are listening, you've heard us reference it, and if you're a soccer fan, you know what we're talking about. Gio ran into an issue with Berhalter and the team going into the World Cup. Basically, he said, she said, at the end of the day, it appears that they said, you're not really part of our plans. And tournament goes on. And then afterwards, the parents, in true soccer dad pod style, decide they're going to be like, I'm protecting my little Johnny. And he beat his wife years ago, right? That's right. In essence what happened.
Right.
Tell the listeners what you did. This questionnaire. What was it, and what were the results?
When we got back at my team at Akron in the spring, we, asked some questions. We're trying to get player ownership, so we asked them some things on thoughts on what they would like to see in the spring and on development and ways coaches can help. And then we always throw a fun question. Sometimes it's like, what's the best fast food? Is In-N-Out Burger better than
Whataburger?
Yeah, Whataburger. This time I was like, hey, it's on everybody's mind. Are you Team Reina? You Team Berhalter? Yeah. And we asked the team and come back, and it's the team split 50-50. Exactly. Half the team thought, Berhalter's, and, they'd be on his side on this whole saga and how it played out, and the other would be on Reina. That just epitomizes the worst thing that can happen is that's what's happened. They've split.
It's almost like Congress.
Right. They've split the country. The players that are coming in, this is always going to be an issue. And the players have probably thought, hey, we've dealt with this. This is nothing. You want to go watch a pro team training, guy's upset, he may walk around. They're pros. They have an ego. Sometimes that happens, and if the stories, no one knows the true stories other than the guys that were there. Yeah. But with what's come out, if Greg said that to Reina, then 20-year-old who isn't going to have a pouty moment. They called him out on it, fixed, problem done. He calls him out in the public. Why? That starts the whole trickle down, and then the Reinas think they can call their buddies. Yeah. And now get strong on them out. Now we got this whole mess, and everybody's going to lose. I don't see how Greg can continue. I don't see how the Reinas are going to. Gio's got to build up a lot of trust, and he's going to take a lot of crap in the locker room for this.
Well, I mean, he kind of has the path of least resistance at the end of the day because he's a player. If he simply says nothing, trains and plays and puts out an that's it.
Everybody will forget.
He's fine. Berhalter, I agree. I don't see how you can ever come back from that because no matter what, every single press conference, a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, it will come up.
Right.
So,
and I'll argue this: like, U.S. Soccer makes a decision on him sooner. Hey, you're out, you're in. Maybe none of this comes out. My opinion on what he said, how he said it, when he said it, sounded like a coach that was lobbying to be renewed.
Yeah.
Hey, this is a strong culture. This is what I created. This is how we handled a bad situation and turned it into the most positive U.S. national team, strongest team chemistry of any national team I've been a part of. It's lobbying for the job. Like, if they make a more decisive decision after the World Cup, like, hey, we're hiring you not, maybe he doesn't feel like he has to go there. Feel like he's tooting his own horn. Like,
I agree with you. It felt like politicking out of the gate. And I'll go back to, these kids, these players at this level. Gio is a special player. We would agree on that. You're going into a tournament that you failed to qualify for. You hadn't played in 8 years. It is the pinnacle of the sport at the national team level. Are you telling me you can't get over a little pouty preseason attitude when you have that kind of talent? That's the part that I don't understand. And not playing rain enough. It makes sense after the fact, but almost goal, no goal. But seeing him not play, and in hindsight, understanding why. But Aronson is the other player, too, that during the World Cup, where were the minutes? Because it seemed as if every time he stepped on the field, too, our energy, our effectiveness, and actually playing that high press, but being effective in the high press, we were better with him on the field. We were better with Reina on the field. And it's almost like Berhalter, in making those decisions, was trying to say, nope, I got the system. Check it out.
Well, I'll ask you this. How easy is it for you to make decisions when you've told your team, we're going to change the way everybody views American soccer? So now are you a possession team? What is it that people view? What were you trying to change? Because that will dictate who you're calling in and choosing in this lineup.
Well, I think part of that, too, is, to answer your question to me, which I like whenever guys ask me a question. That's nice change of pace, by the way. Americans that are either new to the game or just kind of the casual soccer fan, they don't know the difference in styles of play. If I were to go to an average Joe out at Soccer Park on a Friday night and say, hey, can you give me an example of a high-press team? They're going to say, like, Duke Blue Devils. Coach K.
Right.
They're not associating that.
Right.
So U.S. soccer, what we agreed upon earlier, we have this crisis in style, crisis in, our what defines U.S. soccer from a playing style globally. Because you think of Brazil, you immediately think of just the beautiful game, creativity, and tremendous defense, which is the part that nobody wants to ever remember. That Brazil, historically, on all those great teams, had the best defense in the world, right? And then you look at the Dutch total football, or you look at Germans with that high long line, and they're gonna German you, very methodical. U.S. doesn't have that. So this whole thing of, well, let's bring players in to fit our style, I call bullshit, because it's the NFL draft. Bring our top 24 players, the best players, which ironically and not coincidentally, 23 of them are playing in Europe between England, Germany, and the Netherlands for the most part, right? So why don't we just go after a European coach?
For me, what is difficult about moving forward is now our best players have been coached by some of the best coaches ever.
Yeah. Yes.
And now I always believe a national team coach should be of that nationality because they understand this. And like I said before, what makes us different is you could have a national team that identifies with a different part of America. So at the end of the day, who sees who our best players are and who can see how they can bring together and bring in players that can complement what our best players do. And like I said, for me, if I ask you, is our problem speed? Do we lack speed against the best countries?
No.
Do we lack skill?
We're middle of the pack.
Right? Do we lack decision making?
Yes.
Right. Do we lack vision? Do we lack mentality?
Striker.
Right. We obviously lack certain things positionally, but when you talk about the athletic qualities, I don't think anybody would say U.S. lacks the athletic qualities to be the world's best.
Yeah, you look at guys like Musa, you look at Zimmerman, you look at, I mean, take your pick. They're physical specimens. They give them 6, 9, 12 months, they can play professionally another sport, right? That whole, we need the best athletes to play. No, we don't. I agree with you. Our biggest problem is on the mental side. It's on the strategic side. It's on the decision-making side. We just, you pointed it out with Pulisic. And I've probably seen more Pulisic games than most, being a Chelsea fan. You play on that team, Pulisic, and you have behind you have a Mason Mount. You have, a Reece James. You have Kai Havertz up in front of you. I mean, world-class players. Get them the ball. Just get them the ball. That's all you have to do.
Right.
And 70% of the time, he does not get them the ball. And it should be easy. Theoretically, you playing on a team like that, it's different than playing on a team that has players that aren't in the right position or making the right run. So, I don't know. We could go on and on and on about that. One thing I want to, just a slight parallel conversation question area, being the local that you are, watching the World Cup, how did it make you feel? Did you have a sense of pride? Did you have any connectivity emotionally when you saw, especially, game one, where we had not one, but two St. Louis players, not only from St. Louis, but from the same club, from the same freaking high school, starting in that game? Did that kind of make your little butterflies or anything watching?
Yeah, I mean, you said it earlier in the show. We're from Granite City, 10 state championships. We know fully aware of how many we've won, and we're very proud of that fact. And the same thing, when we tie ourselves with St. Louis, we're very proud of the history and tradition of St. Louis soccer and what it's done for U.S. and how it's advanced the game. And to continue to see players from the area at the forefront of the game for the national team is like, hey, I'm lucky. I grew up there.
Yeah.
Right? I feel like, maybe it's an arrogant statement. I feel like because I'm from St. Louis, I can speak on soccer more than any other American.
Do you experience that when you travel around? When you post game, Akron v. Virginia, whoever, take your pick. You ever sit around having a bourbon with the coach afterwards? Does that come up? Does the St. Louis pedigree in your backbone? Do you ever talk about that?
Or
have you been away too long?
I've been away a little bit long, but when you talk to older people and the guys that are older in the game and you bring that up, they immediately talk about the history of St. Louis. Whether it be whatever World Cup, they'll always bring up, 3-4 players that they knew from the area that they played against or whatnot. Now nobody wants to be friendly. You go play somebody after the game, you don't say anything for 6 months. You can't even just say, hey, great game, I won, you lost, let's have a drink, you got a hell of a team, right? That rarely happens these days.
I mean, you need to pull like Baker style, just have a little Yeti mobile, on the side and walk up for the handshake and hand him a cold bud, right?
I mean, there's probably, I'd say 3-4 coaches that I know well enough to, no matter what the game is, if we're staying the night and going the next day, that they'll say, let's go hang out.
That's good.
We could talk about it. We may not even talk about the game. They'll just be able to move it past, talk soccer. They just love the game,
Yeah, we'll do it.
So it's
there
needs to be more of that,
Yeah, it's so obviously, someone just walked by, shook their hand. They were on their way out. They're like, "Yeah, I'm ready. Whenever you're ready." Well, that gentleman was Dave Lang. He's the Jim Leaker. That was Jim Leaker. I talked to Dave the other day. They both look similar. Jim is the president of the St. Louis Soccer Hall of Fame. Ex-player, talk about encyclopedia of knowledge. That's the thing about St. Louis. You go to any place like this, east side or west side, where they're soccer players, somebody's going to come through that's got a better story than you, around the game, right? Let's get back to St. Louis here. for a second. I want to talk about that a little bit more. Because today, earlier, before we met up, you ran down. You were invited down to check out the new training facility down at City, the stadium. I had a conversation with the coach, some of the coaching staff. Give me your 10,000-foot view of your experience. What you saw, and what do you think about it moving forward?
Yeah, the facilities at their place, I was blown away. Like, to get everything downtown, like, been around the world, been to a lot of training places, not only in the U.S., but to have your stadium in a downtown area and your training is for a staff and players, it's an unbelievable blessing. And I think for the community, you guys should just really appreciate what has been done here for soccer. And the staff was welcoming. I mean, it was an awesome experience. They bring you in, they talk to you, real friendly, explain a little bit of what they're doing, and you just get to watch. And like I said, for me, it's about trying to just learn from people that do it as professionals, that do it at a high level. Were they poking around a little bit, asking who you got coming up the pipe? Oh, they knew a couple players. I had a couple conversations about some players I have coming back and guys that they have their eye on if they have a good year. And obviously, there's a ton of players they can attract here, and so it's always nice to have some that they're at least aware of. And do you have success? Do you work the market? It's St. Louis from a prospect standpoint. Obviously, given your tie to the region and our pedigree, is this an area that you've had success recruiting in, or want to recruit more in? No, we haven't had as much success as I would have liked or hoped for. We have a current player in Juan Cruzri. Sure. His brother played for St. Louis City too, and we actually had his brother committed to us, but he decided to sign with Sporting KC, and still joke with him. We lost in the Final Four that year, and I always told him in the recruitment process I felt like he was the missing piece, and going to the Final Four and losing, I felt like justified my opinion of him. Yeah. So I was like, he owed me his brother coming. So his brother has come, and IU has such a stronghold on this area, and SLU's done a tremendous job here of late. And when SLU was a little down, I was hoping we could sneak in a few, but the same guys we wanted ended up going to IU. And I was talking to Mayor's dad, the Final Four, and I was like, completely blew that. He came to our camp. I think I had a window to get him recruited, and I waited a little bit longer, and I swept in there, and I lost it. And he was episode 4. He's your nemesis, in my opinion, Mr. Ken Godat, because he obviously played there. Him and Yeagley played together, all those years. I think Ken's got a secret little, a bat phone to IU, and because the championship game, what was it, 6? I believe 6 players and staff combined. Not only were from St. Louis, but they were Gallagher. They were all Gallagher players. Yeah, and we probably had 3 of those guys visit. And I want, obviously being from here, I want St. Louis players. I'd love to have them. And, we got 2 guys committed. I can't comment on who they are yet until they sign. I'm hoping that continues the process of getting more kids in, and maybe with St. Louis City, maybe that breaks it up. That IU connection. I don't know if we can ever completely break it up, but could we continue to do what we've done these last couple of years, is find the right guy out of the area and add him to our team. And Juan Cruzri's done a great job for us and has a couple more years left, and we have high hopes for him, as do the 2 guys we have coming committed, and hopefully. Are we calling them Player A and Player B? Player A, Player A, or Player A too. Yeah. So we're excited. I always like to try and get it, because the mentality you're getting from kids out of St. Louis, and once you know the mentality, you at least have a starting point, and then a lot of other things come into development. But you don't have to worry about maybe one of the bigger things. Passion for the game, and some toughness, because a lot of good coaches here that are not, they don't always give their players warm fuzzies. And
No.
Tell people, look, it's a difficult game. You can't expect just to Ted Lasso somebody from 10 to 20 and be a pro. There's going to be some tough love moments.
Yeah.
You know, you can always go overboard as a coach. We've all done it, but you know, there's a balance between tough love and you know, believing in kids, and that's always the difficult part for coaches. You know, the development ages to find.
So then, we're going to wrap up here shortly. You're going into first season in the new conference. You've got a couple St. Louis young bloods maybe coming your way. That's what it sounds like. You know your team. You got balanced return, right? You weren't as decimated as some.
Well, it's my first year, my coaching career. All my starters are back.
Okay, so project us out. You know, how do you feel? You've been around it long enough. You know who you're going to be playing. You know, you probably have already watched film on most of them. You know, what are you looking at in your 23-24 season?
I think we have a team that can make a run at it. You know, we return 80% of our scoring and have some young guys that can come in and maybe jump some veteran players. And, you know, we've also gone through a lot the last couple of years with this group. So we've had some disappointment. And I think some of that failure and disappointment is also key to some of your bright moments. And this team's prime for it. Obviously, a lot has to go into it when you get going, but I'm really excited about this team and our potential, and the new conference and the excitement that will bring might be what really gets us over the top. I mean, it's when you go into the MAC, I tell everybody it's been probably 10 years of no one wants to play the game as a player. No fan wants to watch the game. You win the game. No one even says congratulations. It's expected.
Right.
You lose the game, world's falling apart, and that may not be the case. And you just don't build momentum. You just build tension.
Right.
You know, now you get to go in a situation where you feel like win or lose, you're kind of in it with everybody, and everybody's enjoying that journey, and you can build momentum. You know, people can get excited through conference results. You know, and
so if I'm scheduled to go. I believe early May. My wife said she's got a conference, and I tend to follow around her conference schedule. Vegas. I'm supposed to go to Vegas. Realistically, how much money should I put down Akron to win? You know, or can I expect decent odds? You know, and would I owe you a dinner afterwards?
I don't know what odds we would get, but you know, I think you could feel good about that bet. Like, we'll be
there. You go.
A team that can be in the mix. Like I said, I usually this type of year, even if I lost my one or two top players or whatever, I'd still feel this strong. Now, I've been in a situation we got everyone back, and I'm sitting here looking at players we have coming in. I still may have 3 new starters. So your team gets
more competitive.
Yeah, better. And if they're not new starters, then those guys have gotten better that are fighting them off, but you have more depth.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you're playing in a 10th season and a 4-month window, 4.5-month window, like, depth can be key at the right time. And, you know, we're the last guy who's gone through it, you know, Ben Lunt, funny story, new St. Louis City goalkeeper.
Yeah.
You know, I was with him. He was in our national final team in 2018, and we got to like 6 games left, and he made a mistake in a game. And Ben's 3rd year, and he's frustrated with this mistake because it's happened before. And I just said, "Hey, Ben, you're never playing here again. I can't take this anymore. Never playing here." I just had a bad moment as a coach, right? And he walks out of the office, and my goalkeeper coach goes, "He's our best keeper. You can't be telling him that." I'm like, I'm ready to see what the other guy's got. Like, we've been on him on this mistake for a while. He's like, "I don't care. We need him.
Yeah.
You can't tell him he's never playing again." I'm like, well, that's where I'm at. Well, he doesn't start for 2 games. Well, then our other guy gets a concussion. And, well, Ben's back in. Bring Ben back in the office. I'm like, "Ben, well, you know how I said you're never playing again? I lied. I need you."
Take back.
I go, hopefully we're in a spot. I said, I'll do this to you. I'm like, I'm not going to take you out from here. I'm going to ride or die with you. What I said was out of line, right? I was emotional about some things. You've been our best keeper. I was trying to send you a message. I need you now. You know, in fairness to Ben, defensive MVP in the NCAA tournament, led us to the final. By far our best player that year. Kept us in the final with the PK save and was absolutely tremendous at Wake Forest. You know, so as coaches, sometimes you put yourself in.
Yeah.
We talk about the national team as coaches. Sometimes you create your own drama and problems, and definitely did that with him. But you guys will absolutely love Ben Love.
Yeah.
Awesome keeper. He's obviously going to be back up to Berkey, but you guys got a tremendous goalkeeper person. And
I've heard of Berkey.
yeah. I watched him today in training. I'm like, wow. I told Ben afterwards, I'm like, you know, I don't know how many games you're going to play, but
you're going to learn a lot.
Enjoy it. You don't always get opportunities to see players firsthand in your position that talented.
Yeah.
And be their backup.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you know, I'm like, enjoy the heck out of it, and when you're there, be ready.
How many? Real quick, last question. Do you know offhand? 10 years as coach. How many players you have playing right now? Pro. Ballpark.
I'd say around 20.
Quick name drop. Who you got out there?
We got Yedlin, Darlington Nagby. If you want to go USL, Aiden Quinn. Obviously Ben Lund. Richie Lorea.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of talent. Teal Bunbury. A lot of talented guys. Scott Caldwell still playing. Will Trapp.
It's a good roster.
Not bad. A lot of guys that have been fortunate enough to play for the national teams are still playing for them. And hopefully we can add to that.
Well, Jared, thank you for your time, man. There was a lot of fun, a lot of incredible insight, you know, fun stories. Would love to eventually have you back, you know, to catch up, because obviously the world that you live in, that we talk about, changes by the minute. So I'd love to keep up with you, the team, the recruits, you know, what's going on. Going to roll us out here with a little Allman Brothers, right? Another mighty fine KC classic. And please, you know, hit me up anytime. Love to have you back. You know.
Yeah, no, thank you. This has been a lot of fun.
Right on. Well, thanks for listening this far. If you made it this far, all two of you, I really appreciate it. Give us a follow. Give us a share. Reviews are great. You know, and if you want to give us money too, because, you know, we do tend to have a few pops during these shows. It's just, you know, it's like a tip. You know, we're a tipping nation these days. We tip McDonald's, right? We're making Mr. Pink extremely upset with our tip sensation. So just pass it our way. The Venmo tab is on our website page at gaslightstl.com. Thanks for your time. Thank you, Amsterdam Tavern, for hosting. And Jared, good luck with wife and baby. And with the season coming up, we'll definitely be keeping an eye on it, hitting you up, see how things are going. And talk to you soon, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, take care.